are live.
Very good. Well, good morning. Good afternoon. It's noon. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you at this webinar. I'm Dale Slattery. I'm Vice President Creative with Graphically Speaking. Graphically Speaking sponsors meetups throughout the year to share insights and best practices for web design and development. This is our first meetup this year. March, we had planned an in-person meetup, and given the pandemic conditions, we obviously canceled it. So this is our first virtual meetup this year. Our theme will look at how consumers and businesses are changing to accommodate social distancing norms. B2B and B2C companies can either survive or thrive depending on how they navigate these uncharted waters. We have three presenters today. Our presenters are from Graphically Speaking and Adobe Magento. First, we'll hear from Melody Shih. She's Vice President of Operations and Creative from Graphically Speaking, followed by Sergio Taddeo. Sergio is Director of eCommerce at Graphically Speaking. And last but not least, we'll hear from Adobe Magento's Matt Boland. Matt is Senior Manager for Magento's partner programs, and I understand he's affectionately known as Magento Man. If time permits today, our presenters will answer a few of your questions in the final portion of the webinar. You can click on the Q&A icon at the top of your screen and type your questions there. And now, I'm going to turn it over to Melody Shih from Graphically Speaking, who will share her insights around the recent changes in consumer behavior. Melody, over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dale, and welcome everybody. I'm happy to kick this off for us today, and happy we're continuing with these meetups online. So it's definitely different times, and so off we go. Okay, so I'm going to start by talking to you a bit about user experience and what we've seen in changes in the website user, so who they are, and also how their buying behavior has changed, and how as web designers and web owners and e-commerce online store owners, so what we have to pay attention to adapt our websites to these times. So definitely the pandemic is rapidly changing our behavior, and it, on the rare occasions that I go shopping these days, I do try to stay home as much as possible, be disciplined with that. But when I am out, I start to wonder, like, how have my own behaviors changed? How have those around me, what I've witnessed, in their behavior changes? And what is, I think, most interesting to look at is how many of these behaviors we think will actually stick. Which ones will last? I know there are some behaviors that are just, it came out during the lockdown when everything was closed, and that may be temporary, but as we have all seen and witnessed, there are, I think, some of these behaviors, the behavior shifts are going to stick around post-pandemic. And so those are the things that we want to focus on today to hopefully give you some insights as to what to pay attention to and what to address. And so I think that the global crisis, although, and with all the negative impacts, it does present a lot of good opportunities for us web designers and web developers to optimize the user's experience during these times. So if you think about your parents or your grandparents, how their behaviors have changed, how their mindset have shifted. And so how open-minded they are to maybe using some of the online experiences. When you do go shop in person, what are you expecting from the people in store? What safety protocols? And then how does that affect what parts of your activities are you bringing online because you just want to avoid the risk altogether, maybe, right? And also in your workplace, how that changes. So today, I'm going to be talking about a few things, and it stems from how we see our habits changing, and that's first how your website users, so who they are, what changes we have seen. Second, how their online shopping behaviors and their expectations have shifted, and want to share some data and research around that. And lastly, what we should do as web designers to adapt the customer journey of your users, and what products and services to maybe draw some inspiration from when you go about making changes to your web products and your web presence. Okay, so first is your user definitely has changed. And so I think some businesses may have seen a more major impact, some more minimal, but it's definitely going to have a permanent change to who your users are. And so just going to go through a few of those changes. A recent study done by Ipsos in mid-April showed that over 25% of consumers tried a new product or a new brand because they're the ones that they love, their favorite stores or their favorite products, maybe were just out of stock. And or maybe their favorite stores were closed and they just didn't have that option altogether, right? And so it really forced them to just go look elsewhere, and that's primarily online, right? But then new websites, new e-commerce websites, new channels of buying. And so what we see is that consumers are more open-minded at the moment. And as a result, a lot of online e-commerce businesses are seeing shifts from a majority of returning customers pre-COVID, and then now a shift to the majority of your users are maybe new customers. And so speaking to them is going to require a different tactic altogether online, and what appeals to them is going to be different. And what's even more interesting is that these new users, they're going to include an older persona. So if you think about how many of your traditionally digitally shy parents and grandparents, I know mine are, they don't want to do anything online. They think that their information is going to be stolen, their identity is going to be stolen, nothing's secure, don't want to do my banking online, right? And so they were really resistant to it. But then now because they want to see my kids, so their grandchildren online, they've gone on video chats with them. At the beginning, so in March, they were reluctant to fill their prescriptions online. And so I was making a lot of trips to stores picking up their prescriptions. Not that I minded, of course, right? But then they were still reluctant to get their prescription filled online. So now, 3 months later, 3 months into this lockdown, they're now filling their prescription online, right? And so they've warmed up to the idea, they tried it out, and now they're realizing how convenient it is. And how many of your parents or grandparents are now ordering groceries to be delivered to their homes online? And so again, at the beginning, my sister and I kind of shared the duties of delivering groceries to my parents and my in-laws. But then they weren't happy with our choices. they actually complained, hey, like, I don't want this brand of sausage. I actually want, brand B instead. Oh, why'd you pick that one, right? And so we taught them how to go online and pick out their own groceries. And now they're doing it themselves, right? And so a lot of retailers have noticed that a lot of older users are now using their website and their products. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that this is a forced change. Like they didn't go in willingly, right? And trust me, I tried to teach them how to do all this online months and years ago, but then they were reluctant. And so this has forced them into this change. And so we as web designers, it is our job to make sure that their needs are met and the experience is enjoyable, so that this newfound convenience of theirs is not scary. It actually adds a lot of benefits into their lives moving forward, even after the lockdown is completely lifted. So Prosper Insights and Analytics also conducted research in the last months and found that not only does 30% of the general population, so regardless of age group, they plan to do more shopping online moving into the future, but a surprising 28.3%. So very close to the average of 30%, 28.3% of those 65 years old and above feel the same way now that they've been exposed to it. So that's a really good sign. So elderly consumers, online shopping is expected to continue to increase over time. So don't underestimate the size of this user group. I know in person I would have asked you guys, or I would have known that you guys are all, in BC and Vancouver. So I'm not sure how many of you are outside of the conference, outside of the province, logging into this webinar today. But don't estimate the size of this user group, because in the group that is aged 65 years and above actually represents 19% of British Columbia's population. And that's roughly 950,000 people in 2019. And so looking at all of Canada, that's 6.6 million potential users of your web or e-commerce site in that age group. So the growth of this user group in BC alone is projected to reach 1.7 million by year 2041. So this is a sizable customer segment for companies to service digitally. So for web designers and marketers, the traffic in your personas that you might have been designing for pre-COVID maybe didn't include this demographic profile, or maybe it was just a small portion of your profile. And so in your web design choices and your UI, so interface design choices, you might not have been tailoring it to an older audience. And so there are some things to keep in mind as you reassess your personas, and then also make sure that you're designing so that your web design is easy to use for this older audience, such as things like larger sans serif font sizes is definitely easier to read. Increase color contrast. So as your eyesight deteriorates with age, actually you'll actually lose the ability to differentiate between subtle shades of blue. And so in your web design, try not to use dark blue versus light blue as that differentiating factor of, if something is active, like an active state or an inactive state, right? And use larger button sizes. That's an obvious, easier to click. Icons should all have labels. So I think a lot of these things are just good usability, like a good web design usability practices anyways, right? So they've just been emphasized because icons, we know, come from our use of other applications or websites, such as, if you're on WhatsApp all the time and you send a message, right? And the little icon where you fire off, send a message, right? So the older audience might not be familiar with that. So if you try to use that same icon in your website design, they might be unfamiliar, and they might not know what it is that is the intended action and the message that you're trying to convey. If you have video and audio content, make sure you use subtitles, because they may be a little hard of hearing. Again, just best practices anyways, because a lot of people want to turn off the volume or lower their volume if they're in a public space, or maybe you're using your phone and your spouse is sleeping beside you, right? And so subtitles definitely are necessary if you have that kind of content. Avoid complex gestures. Because by complex gestures, so what I'm referring to are the ones that you need, two fingers to actually perform that interaction. So when you zoom in on things using two fingers on maps, sometimes you have to put two fingers on and then pan. Those are nice to include in web designs if your target audience is younger, but just be aware that the older audience will have trouble with those types of complex gestures. They have an obvious preference towards tablets over smartphones for the obvious reason, because it's bigger. my dad squints at his phone, and so if you hand him a tablet, he's happy and he can actually read the text and click the little buttons. And so, well, hopefully they're larger buttons, but so they obviously have a preference over a tablet. And so when you're looking at responsive design and font sizes and layout in tablet mode, make sure that older audiences can use it easily. And also test with screen readers. So some older users will use screen readers, so make sure that when they're tabbing through navigation, reading headlines and copy and also links, make sure that the screen readers is reading it, and also reading it well, putting emphasis in the right place, and also links are descriptive, so that it doesn't just say view more or more, right? It actually use descriptive text to help screen readers read along. And so, yeah, so as web designers, there are definitely, some clear adaptations that you have to make in your web design just to make sure that this older audience can use it easily. The next interesting change in your users is in their shopping behavior and their expectations. So Steve Mossop from Insights West shared some results from research conducted with BC residents last month. And I pulled up 3 of them because I thought is very insightful. They asked participants how much they agree or disagree to a series of statements to help brands and businesses like yours understand the shifts that were taking place in today's world. So the first being, I have been actively trying to buy from Canadian businesses so that I support the Canadian economy. Um, oh, oh. So that's 82%. 82% of participants responded with strongly agree or somewhat agree, so positive responses to that statement. I've been actively trying to buy from BC businesses so that I can support provincial economy. 81% agree, or somewhat agree, or strongly agree. I've been actively trying to buy from small neighborhood businesses to support them as they try to cope with the COVID-19 situation. 79% of respondents agree with that statement. So that's very interesting and actually very, it's a very welcome shift, I think. Interesting data, and also a very welcome shift for locally owned and Canadian businesses. So on the web design marketing side, I think what you have to take away is if you are a local business, if you are a BC, Canadian business, then it's worth reviewing your website messaging to ensure that this is featured as a unique selling proposition. Okay, so I'm going to move on to some expectations from online shoppers as they move into the post-COVID age. So convenience and contactless is what I'm going to be speaking about. So COVID-19 has forced a lot of retailers, if not all retailers, to adapt to e-commerce very quickly in order to stay open for business. An Ipsos survey in April found that 60% of Canadians used search to see what is open or closed near me. Because with all the stores closed, the consumers had to just quickly change their shopping habits, and they really had no option. And so the majority of them were just searching online to see who's open. And so the reason for choosing to online shop has varied over the past years between things like competitive prices to convenience. But then last year, convenience already topped the list of reasons for online shopping again. So this should be nothing new, right? We knew that a lot of products and services were coming out of this need and this preference for users to shop online. And so it's just become even more emphasized by this COVID and lockdown situation. So one of the stores that I was shopping at early in the pandemic, because I have 2 young kids and they were no longer going to preschool, and so I needed to entertain them somehow, right? And so I went online to Michael's and was ordering some art supplies so that they could get crafty and make a mess while I try to work. And so one of the interesting things, or some of the interesting things that I saw on the site that I wanted to share with you today is that, so a feature that has been around again for a few years already, so it's nothing new, but just has immensely became popular during this time, is the click and collect or in-store pickup feature. Because the need for social distancing is going to encourage continued online shopping moving forward, in-store pickup has just been adapted to curbside pickup as well for the need for social distancing and address health and safety concerns. But I think it's still worth going over because I've seen it executed well and sometimes not so well. So on the Michael's page, you could see how they've now changed the store locator. So once you save a store as your favorite, they're indicating right up top if that store is open for business, in-store shopping, or available for curbside pickup. So because online shoppers, when they visit e-commerce sites, they're actually looking for these features when they make their decision whether to buy from you or not. It's very important that you're featuring not just, the homepage banners and the banners up top. I think they're very common. And also the pages that describe the service, they're also very common, but the details, right? So once someone sets their favorite store or their nearest store, it being able to communicate, if those features are available is going to help with their buying decision. And also on the listing page. So when I'm browsing for canvases to buy for my kids, right? And so I can actually sort because they're driving me crazy. I need the canvas today, right? And so I can sort the list of products based on ones that are available for free store pickup today. And so that really helps in my buying journey. So the other thing that I noticed was when you click on a product, you get to the product detail page. They've now featured and defaulted to the free in-store pickup. So you see up here above that in green, it says, if this product is in stock and it is ready to ship, right? So standard e-commerce, buy it, then I wait for it to ship to me. But then they've now, because I've saved my store, they've now just set the option. So you see the radio button there is already selected for me for free store pickup, as opposed to the delivery option. And so I found that very interesting that I think retail businesses are starting to learn that there are benefits for them as well. It does reduce on the shipping cost because consumers are just expecting free delivery, right? And so there may be shipping costs associated with being able to retain customers because of that free delivery expectation. And so having users just come in and buy from the store is going to save on those costs. And also, so I talked about, users weighing convenience over price, competitive pricing, right? And so the other option that they've introduced is same-day delivery to compete, I guess, with Amazon and such, right? And so they're also featuring that right on the details page. So they're not waiting for the user to add products to their cart, get to the cart, and then find out what the delivery options are. They're actually providing those options right on the page up front. And so when you get to the checkout page, so same thing, very prominent, defaulted to free store pickup. And what is also nice about their page here is that there are these options for if you need help. So if you don't typically do store pickup or you don't do curbside pickup as well, right? And you're confused about what to expect, there's easy access to click to chat and you can talk to someone right away. Right, so that's really good customer experience to make sure that those new users. So we talked about that a lot of users are going to be new users as opposed to returning users. And so if they're new, make sure that there is someone there to help guide them through the process so it's as frictionless as possible. Okay, so lastly, I wanted to talk to you guys about reviewing your customer experience and how you are adapting your customer experience to service new changes in the customer journey. And so no business could have predicted this sudden shift to an almost complete digital customer experience, right? Over the past few years, everyone is wondering, what is digital transformation? Like, how do you define it? What does it mean? Well, this is it. This, right, what we're living through right now and what a lot of retailers are being forced into. And so the digital transformation is making all of your services and customer experience consistent across all touch points and all channels. So if you haven't done so already and you're a web designer, marketer, web developer, or business owner, the e-commerce shop owner, it's time to review and reassess your customer journey. Consider that even after the lockdown. So we know even pre-lockdown, there's the online channels, there's mobile, there's in-store, and all your users take a different path. They take the 30 to 200 touch points before they make their purchase decision. So that's that's old news. But then now we have to consider that all of this at the bottom. So all the in-store experiences, because your consumers are enjoying and being exposed to and now being very comfortable with the convenience of online versus in-store. So how will their behaviors change? So you have to take a look at what was previously in-store kind of ghost that out and just think, okay, what if it's not that it won't exist moving forward, like the lockdown, we're going to reopen businesses and in stores going to be back to normal, right? Business as usual. But then there's some users who are going to stay online, or they're going to prefer to stay online, right? And so how are you going to make sure that the in-store experiences all are equally as pleasant and equally as well serviced online and on mobile? So think about your visitors when they go in store and they get a demo from your sales rep of the product and they get to talk to people. How are they going to get that online? Is that going to be in the form of a video, so that it enhances just or adds to the static product images? So incorporating video is a good way of replacing those demos. What about returns and exchanges? A lot of consumers are reluctant to buy online because if they don't like it, then how are they going to return it? What if they want to exchange something? What if they just want to try it out before they even buy it, right? And so all of that needs to be answered, because on e-commerce, a lot of times, you get a little link at the bottom about returns and exchanges, but that could become a unique selling proposition if you position that service well and develop it well. So one of the things that I think a good place to look for website or e-commerce inspiration when you're thinking, well, how to go about digital transformation, what are the aspects I could actually add to my online entity? I think a good place to look are to the products and services that were actually created with digital at the heart of their business strategy. And so Babylon is a healthcare app by TELUS app that lets you see your doctors online. And when you launch the app, there's a chatbot that allows you to check your symptoms 24/7. It asks you questions about your symptoms to suggest possible next steps. And then if you need to see a doctor, then you see a doctor with a video consultation, right? So that's combining the need for replacing in-person experiences with video, and then also the convenience factor of having the ability to see a doctor when it's the weekend or typical hours when doctors' clinics will be closed. And then after your consultation, your prescriptions and your referrals are just taken care of directly from the app. You can see where you can send your prescriptions and have it filled, and then get a notification back right within the app saying that it's been filled and ready for pickup. So every touch point in the customer journey is considered. And so the other example I wanted to show you guys. Oh, I hear an echo in my mic. Do you guys hear it? No? Okay, thanks. And so the last example I want to show you is Fresh Prep. So I use this grocery delivery meal planning service and have been using it for a couple years now. And so you order from their menus on a weekly basis, and they deliver the ingredients readily portioned to your door. And again, this is a service or product created a few years ago based on the user's need for convenience. Right. And so the only thing I wanted to point out, so that you can check out their website, there's a lot of good UX inspiration there. But then the one thing I want to point out was how they sent text notifications for when your cooler of ingredients is about to arrive. And so this is taking that the customer experience from not only your website, but then to your phone notifications on your phone to make sure that the consumer is notified and kept up to speed, like in real time, about what to expect. And so when they're about to arrive, it gives you a text and it says they're about to arrive in 2 minutes. And then they're like, the Fresh Prep is arriving now. That if you have empty cooler bags from last week, then put them out and we'll pick it up. And then finally, when it arrives, it says, hey, like your cooler bag has arrived, right? And so bring it indoors so that your stuff doesn't sit out there in the sun. And so I just wanted to leave you guys with this final quote here, because I thought that it's a really good way of describing what we're seeing in this digital transformation. I think that there's going to be a blurring of the digital and physical space. Like it's not going to be seen as two experiences anymore. It's simply going to be seen as the experience, right? With less separation or blurring of the lines between the digital and the physical. And so these are just a summary of the quick points that I covered. So shift from returning customers to new users, optimize your experience for an older audience. There's going to be consumer support for local versus larger global retailers. Focus on enhancing your convenience factors, so the click and collect, curbside pickup. Understand the path to purchase as new customer journeys emerge. And digital touchpoints is going to take a much bigger piece of the pie. And also find opportunities to communicate in real time on every device and every channel with things like chatbot that you saw from the Babylon service, or push notifications to let the users know when their delivery is arriving. And that's it. Thank you.